In Module 3, we connected your systems into an operating model that documents itself. But I skipped a question that comes before any of that. When you need a capability, an MES, an AI tool, a piece of your stack, you buy it or do you build it? Most companies default to buying because building sounds expensive and risky. And for decades, that was often right. But something changed. AI and agents just moved the line. Work that used to need the whole team to build, the small team can now build itself. So this module is about that new reality, and it starts with the no oldest decision in the technology seen fresh. Buy or build.
Digital transformation time. Digital transformation time.
I'm Sergey Arisov, and I've made this call many times in regulated deep tech, where a wrong buy or build decision costs you a fortune or locks you into a vendor for years. Two promises for this episode. If you're a founder, you get a clear way to decide buy versus build, so you stop defaulting to whichever feels safer in the moment. If you're a tech lead, you'll get the specific factors that actually matter in a regulated environment, which not all the buy versus build advices talks about. And I'll show you a real case that we built an MES in-house and avoided around £200,000 of external costs. But the money wasn't even the main reason. Let me start from why most of the people gets these decisions wrong. Most buy versus build advice goes like this. Build what's core to your business, buy everything else, and it sounds wise. And for a normal software company, it's roughly fine. But in regulated deep tech, it's dangerously incomplete. Because it only weighs cost and speed and ignores the two things that actually decide your fate: control and lock in. Here's what the standard advice misses. When you buy a system in a regulated environment, you are not just buying features. You are often handing over control of data, of process, and of evidence that you are legally responsible for. And you're taking on a dependency. Let's imagine if that vendor changes their price, their roadmap, or their terms, you're exposed. In a normal company, that's an annoyance. In a company that has to certify a product and prove control for years, it can be an existential risk. So the real question isn't just, is this core? Can I afford to not control this? So we reframe the whole decision. Buy versus build isn't mainly about cost and speed. In regulated deep tech, it's about control and dependency. Cost and speed matter, but they are the tiebreakers, not the main event. Get that order wrong, and you're cooked. There is a serious economic thinking behind this, and it's really worth knowing. The reference here is Oliver Williamson, who won a Nobel Prize for what's called transaction cost economics. Don't switch off at the name. The idea actually is quite simple and powerful. Every time you rely on an outside party instead of doing something yourself, there is a hidden cost. Not just the price on the invoice, the cost of negotiating, monitoring, enforcing, and being exposed if they let you down. Williamson's insight is that these hidden costs, not just the sticky price, should actually decide whether you make something yourself or buy it from the market. And there is one concept from his work that matters or should matter most for you. It's asset specificity. The more specific something is to your particular situation, the more dangerous it is to depend on an outside vendor for it. A generic commodity, buy it, no problem. There are 10 suppliers. But something deeply specific to your regulated product, your process, or your evidence, depend on one vendor for that, and they have power over you because you can't easily switch. In plain terms, the more something is uniquely yours, the more you should think hard before letting someone else own it. So, Williamson gives us the backbone. Buy the generic, be very careful about buying the specific, especially when the specific thing carries your control and your evidence. What I'm adding is what this looks like in regulated deep tech with a small team in the age of AI. So here is the framework. 5 factors in the order that matters for regulated deep tech. Ideally, you should run any buy or build decision through this. Factor 1, and the most important, control of data and evidence. Ask, does this system hold data, process, or evidence that I'm legally responsible for? If yes, buying means handing over control of something you actually can't hand over responsibility for. That's a strong reason to build, or at least to keep the data under your control. This factor alone often decides it. Factor 2. Lock in. Ask if this vendor doubled their price tomorrow or changed the direction, how trapped would I be? If switching would be slow, painful, or impossible, you're not buying a tool. You're buying a dependency. The deeper the lock-in, the stronger the case to build, or to buy in a way you can exit. Factor 3. Specificity. Williamson's point. Is this a generic commodity or something shaped tightly around your particular product and process? The more generic, the safer to buy. The more specific, the more a vendor's fashion will fight your reality and the stronger the case to build. Factor 4. Cost. But the real cost over the whole life cycle, not just the purchase price versus the build price. Let's see the full picture. Buying has ongoing license costs that scale as you grow. Building has maintenance costs you own forever. Count both across years, not just the first invoice. Cheap to buy can become expensive to keep. Expensive to build can become cheap to own. Factor 5. Speed and capacity. Can your team actually build and maintain this without dropping something more important? Sometimes buying is right simply because your people are the most precious resource you have. This is the factor AI just changed the most, and we'll come back to it. But notice its last. Speed is a tiebreaker, not the deciding factor. Deciding on speed alone is how you end up owned. Now, let me show you the framework in action with a real decision. In a deep tech manufacturing company, we needed a manufacturing execution system, an MES. The shop floor system that runs build orders, work instructions, kitting, and non-conformances. The default move is obvious. Buy a commercial MES. They exist, they are mature, so why did we build it in-house instead? Let's run it through the 5 factors and you'll see the logic. Control. An MES holds the record of exactly what was built and how. In regulated manufacturing, that's core evidence. Handing that to a vendor's black box was a real concern. Strong pull to build. Lock in. Commercial MES platforms are famous for deep lock-in and support costs that scale hard as you grow. Another pull to build. Specificity. Our process was specific and evolving fast as a deep tech company. A heavy commercial system would fight that and need expensive customization to fit. Pull to build. Cost. The full life cycle numbers were obvious. Building in-house avoided around £200,000 of external implementation cost. And it avoided the ongoing license and support scaling. Speed and capacity. This was the one real argument for buying. But we had the capability to build a focused version that did exactly what we needed. So, 4 out of 5 factors pointed to build. And the one that didn't, speed, we could handle. So, we built it. Executive approval was explicit, use internal resources, reduce external MES cost by up to £200,000, and keep control and flexibility. And here is the key point. The £200,000 got the headline, but the real win was control and fit. We got a shop floor execution layer that did exactly what we needed, that we fully controlled, that carried our evidence, and that could evolve as fast as we did. You can't simply buy that. And notice, this was a decision made through a framework, not just any kind of gut call. That's actually the whole point. And now, the part that makes this urgent in a way it wasn't a few years ago. Go back to factor 5, speed and capacity. For most of history, this factor killed a lot of good build decisions. You'd run the framework and control, lock-in, specificity would all say build. But you'd look at your tiny team and think, we can't. We don't have the people, so you bought and accepted the lock-in because building was out of reach. Capacity was the wall. But AI and agents just simply moved that wall. The work that used to need a whole team to build, a small team can now do with agents doing the heavy lifting, like the drafting code, wiring integrations, generating the scaffolding. So factor 5, the one that used to force you to buy, is much weaker now, which means more of those build decisions, the ones control and lock-in always wanted, are finally possible. AI didn't change the framework. It changed which answers you can actually act on. The startup can now build what it used to be forced to buy. But this is the whole rest of this module, that new power has a sharp edge. Building with AI is cheap now. Governing what you build is not. If you build fast with agents and skip the control, you just create expensive chaos faster. So the next 2 episodes are about doing this right. How to govern AI itself when you're bringing it into a regulated operation. And a real case of building an internal AI capability that saved a fortune without losing control of the data. Found the takeaway. Stop making buy versus build decisions on gut and vibes. Run the 5 factors and put them in the right order for a regulated company. Control first, then lock in, then specificity, then the full cost, and only after that, the speed. If something holds your data, your evidence, or your control, think very hard before you buy it, no matter how convenient. And know that AI just made building viable for you in cases where it wasn't before. That's a strategic opening most of your competitors haven't noticed yet. And tech lead takeaway. You are the one who has to see the hidden costs the sticker price hides. the login, the specificity, the full lifecycle maintenance. Your job is to make the invisible costs visible before the decision and not after. And now, to be honest about what your team plus agents can actually build and maintain. Because the capacity limit moved, but it didn't vanish. Building something you can't maintain is just a slower way to fail. So, you've decided to build more because AI made it possible. The obvious next question is the one everyone's rushing past. How do you actually bring AI into a regulated operation without breaking the control you worked so hard to build? Because AI in a regulated environment is where the promise is biggest and the failure is fastest. That's the next episode, the AI governance stack. And now, the recap. Buy versus build isn't mainly about cost and speed. In regulated deep tech, it's about control and dependency first. Williamson's lesson: the more specific and control critical something is, the more dangerous it is to let a vendor own it. Run the 5 factors in order: control, lock-in, specificity, full cost, and then speed. We built an MES in-house on exactly this logic, and the £200,000 saved was the headline, and not the real reason. Control and fit were, and AI just moved the line so more build decisions are finally within reach for small teams. If this gave you a cleaner way to decide, subscribe. Next, how to govern AI itself. And in the comments, tell me, what did your company buy that now quietly owns you? That answer usually reveals a factor you skipped.
Digital transformation time.